Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going deep into the world of AI and looking at a potential security vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this one's especially interesting, right? It really
Yeah,
highlights, how there's always another angle, another thing to think about, another layer of this onion to peel back, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
When it comes to AI and security, it seems like every time we turn around, there's a new vulnerability or a new attack vector,
Yeah.
and this one, I think is especially insidious because it really plays on how these systems are designed to work.
Yeah.
So we've got an article here called "Meet the Pirates of the Are Gay,"
Right.
and it's about this new type of attack called adaptive attacks,
Right.
which I'm just gonna lay out there. I love the name
Yeah. It's a very catchy name.
because it really captures the essence of what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's like, you've got these AI pirates
Yeah.
that are trying to steal information
Yeah.
from these knowledge bases.
Right.
And they're not doing it by like breaking in, like forcing the door open.
Right.
They're doing it by tricking the system into giving them what they want.
Exactly. Yeah.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty of adaptive attacks, maybe you could just give us a quick overview of what we're talking about here in terms of, what are these AI systems that are vulnerable to these attacks?
Right. So we're talking about systems that use something called Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's a mouthful. We just call it RAG.
Rack, okay.
So AGI systems combine large language models, or LLMs. And most people are pretty familiar with LLMs these days, right? They're like chatbots, like ChatGPT,
Yeah,
much more sophisticated. But the idea is the same. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer.
right.
But RG systems take those LLMs and combine them with external knowledge bases. So it's
Hmm.
like giving the AI access to a huge library of information.
Okay, got it. So it's like giving the chatbot a whole encyclopedia to work with. So
Exactly.
it's not just limited to like what it's been trained on.
Mm.
It can actually go out and pull in information from other sources.
Right, exactly. And that's what makes them so powerful, but is also what makes them vulnerable to these kinds of attacks.
Right, because now you've got, this whole other area
Yeah.
that attackers can target.
Yeah.
So how do these adaptive attacks actually work? What's the basic idea here?
Okay, so imagine you have this AI system with access to a knowledge base, like a company's internal documents or a government database. The attacker wants to steal some sensitive information from that knowledge base, like customer data or classified intelligence. Instead of trying to hack into the database directly, which might be very difficult, they use adaptive attacks. They start by asking the LLM a series of seemingly harmless questions. But each question is carefully crafted to guide the LLM towards retrieving a specific piece of information that the attacker wants. So it's like they're playing a game of 20 questions with the AI, but each question is designed to get them closer to the target.
So they're not like asking for the information directly.
Yeah,
They're kind of like nudging the system in the right direction.
exactly. Yeah. And because these LLMs are trained on massive amounts of text data, they're really good at making connections between different concepts and ideas.
Right.
So the attacker can exploit that by asking questions that seem unrelated, but actually create a path for the LLM to retrieve the information they want.
Oh, that's really sneaky.
Right. And that's what makes these attacks so dangerous. It's not like a traditional cyber attack where you can just put up a firewall and block the bad guys. These attacks are happening at the level of the language itself.
Right. So it's like it's like they're speaking the language of the AI.
Exactly.
And they're using that to manipulate it. Now, you mentioned that one of our listeners pointed out a connection between this research on adaptive attacks and some other research that's been done on the challenges of combating misinformation that's generated by LLMs.
Yes, that's right. There was a report from the Illinois Institute of Technology about how LLMs can be used to generate very convincing misinformation. And it's a really important connection because it shows that these vulnerabilities aren't just limited to security. They can also have a big impact on the spread of fake news and propaganda.
So what you're saying is that these adaptive attacks, they're not just about stealing information.
No, they're not.
They could also be used to manipulate people's opinions and beliefs.
Exactly. By carefully crafting their queries, an attacker could potentially get an LLM to generate false information that supports their agenda.
That's a pretty scary thought. I mean, we're already seeing how much damage misinformation can do in the real world.
Right. And the scary part is that these LLMs are getting better and better at generating human quality text. So it's going to become increasingly difficult to tell the difference between real and fake information.
So what can we do about this? I mean, it seems like we're kind of in a tough spot here.
Well, the first step is awareness. Developers need to be aware of these vulnerabilities so they can start building safeguards into their systems.
Right.
And users need to be aware of the risks so they can be more critical of the information they see online.
So education is a big part of it.
Absolutely. And I think we also need to start thinking about regulation. As AI becomes more powerful, we need to have clear guidelines and standards in place to ensure that it's being used responsibly.
Right. Because it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it's being used.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to remember that AI is a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil.
Right.
It's up to us to make sure that it's used for the right reasons.
Well said. This deep dive has been really eye-opening. It's clear that AI security is something we need to take seriously.
Absolutely.
And as AI continues to evolve, we're going to have to stay vigilant and keep learning and adapting.
Definitely. The landscape is constantly changing, so we need to be prepared to face new challenges as they arise.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the complex world of AI security. And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring this topic and to think critically about the implications of AI in your own life. Until next time.
See you next time.